So, I was diagnosed with autism at the age of 4, and it was quite a struggle for me growing up. I can't really say too much because I didn't really understand what autism was back then. Not many people really did. In fact, I don't really recall there being too much autistic awareness until I was in high school and more people started being diagnosed with autism. And well, today I'm going to talk about my struggles as a kid with autism. And to first start off, I want to talk about, you know, my focusing. It's a little simple thing. Almost every autistic kid has a problem focusing. And when you're especially in the middle of the spectrum, and when I say spectrum, I mean, I want to use the term umbrella term, which is something that was commonly used in my social skills class, which taught autistic kids about their own disability. And for this umbrella term, we're going to have number 1 being higher on the scale and number 10 being the lower part. I would be somewhere around 3 to 5. And as being in the middle of the spectrum, it was extremely difficult for me to focus on particularly things that uninterest me. And still the same way to this day, though my interest has greatly expanded. As a kid, I didn't really have much interest in anything outside of my toys, what's fun, and video games. And that's mostly all I would do. I would draw, I would, mess with my toys. I had a particular obsession with Mario. When I first made this channel and before I deleted all those Minecraft videos and stuff when I was 12, kind of regretting that now. Option. So how do we get our autistic kids to focus? Well, what really helped me focus in school, especially in my later years, was when the schools did something fun with their lessons. Like, my US history teacher was very interactive. When he talked about his lessons, he had actual artifacts. He had an actual squished lead cannonball that he passed around the room with a thing of hand sanitizer just so we had something to get us by until we can get to the bathroom and wash that lead off. But it was interesting, is what I'm saying. It interested me because he made it fun. And that was nice. It was wonderful, but that's what I'm trying to say is that's how you can get your autistic kids to learn, because that's what helped me learn was through these fun little activities, making an actual interactive thing, and it's a part of that is being a hands-on learner. So, like, what helped me in school was when I was put into 110 classes. These were classes that were filled with half the children. So as a high school class in the high school I went to, a lot of the classes would range between 20 to 30 kids. And when I was put into 110 classes, they were just 12 or 10. And they would be the same faces too. So I would be stuck with the same people, in different classes, which helped because it was familiar faces. And with familiar faces, I felt more comfortable around my peers. Being that, it just really takes an interactive experience to really drive something like that home. I want to talk about how I handled my emotions, especially because it wasn't well. You'll notice a lot of autistic children in particular have a very hard time wrapping their heads around emotions, particularly more extreme emotions, like maybe they're really angry or they're really excited. It becomes hard to calm down, and whether you're really mad or really excited, I found myself freaking out an awful lot. When I was particularly really mad, I would resort to hitting myself. I would resort to hitting things around me, hitting walls. And as I was growing up, I wasn't really taught well how to handle my emotions. And this would eventually lead to acts of self harm when I was a teenager because I would grow depressed. And being depressed, I would feel that at such a heavy weight. It was like an elephant sitting on my chest. And I didn't know how to handle it. And, I reacted in certain ways that not many people would. Many officers at the Madera Police Department may recognize me when I tell this story. And that's because when I was in high school around maybe my junior year, senior year, because I was 18 at the time. I was just becoming an adult, but throughout my years as a kid, I was never really taught how to handle my emotions. So I was getting so bad with my depression, and I really wanted my parents to hear me out that I reacted by scratching the hell out of my chest with a rusty, dull knife and made up this entire story about how I went on a walk with one of my friend's younger sisters because they asked me to watch her. A kid that didn't even exist. And I would save her from a homeless guy. Now, giving police this information and then making them run on a goose chase would get me in trouble. The only reason I did not end up in prison for that is because of autism. And that's what they told me. And that messed with me a little bit. They did give me an understanding, a very harsh understanding, very harsh and very deserving understanding of why it was bad that I lied to them and made up this whole story and wasted their resources, their money, for this wild goose chase over people that didn't even exist, just because I wanted some attention from mommy and daddy. And, it really upset me at the time, but now I've grown to understand. And, that's kind of where I'm trying to lead with my point on handling my emotions, is that when you don't teach your autistic kids how to handle your emotions, we get to this extreme point where we do wild things. And this struggle goes even harder for people who are lower on the spectrum. So just keep that in mind. Another thing I want to touch upon that was a struggle for me as a kid was being gullible. I was very, very, very gullible as a kid. And I believed almost anything that anyone told me, which would lead to bad things. And, though my parents would try to warn me about these things and try to warn me that people lie, I didn't listen. And that led me into getting into a bit of trouble because I would end up with the wrong crowds. Because I really just believed anything anyone told me. It was rough. I think that's something that, parents should definitely crack down on. Kids are very impressionable, especially when you're autistic and you just believe anything anyone tells you. So it was a little rough for me, being that I was very emotional, very gullible, and it was really hard to focus, which are my main points with kids with autism. Now, we don't really differ too much from the average person. It's just we have a hard time processing things. I particularly have a hard time processing things, and I still do. Which is where all the heavy guidance for an autistic person is required. And this is another thing I've done since I was a kid. Just fidget with random objects and biting things, but that's not the point. I'm just showing you an example of some of the things I do. However, it was very hard for me, and still very hard for me, to really stay focused or stay on one topic, especially with somebody with autism and ADHD. Growing up, this was particularly worse because my mind would be everywhere. I would want to focus on that. I would want to focus on this. Oh, sparkly thing over there. And I had no control of that, nor did I have anyone to really understand that, why I was doing that. So this would lead to me getting into a lot of trouble. I would get punished a lot because of my actions of not being able to really focus. And my dad in particular, bless his heart, he's still a wonderful person, and he really does try to this day to be a good dad. But he didn't understand a single ounce of autism whatsoever. So he would get mad at me for the things like fidgeting, which is a very common trait with us. And that's not how you handle it. Now my mom just lets me fidget because fidgeting helps for some reason. It's sensory. I really wanted to talk about this because it's Autism Awareness Month, and there's still very, very many misconceptualizations of autism. I still meet a lot of people who look at me and go, "You're autistic? You don't look autistic." You tell me how autistic people are supposed to look. Are they supposed to look like this? Are they supposed to not be able to talk? Is my eye supposed to be down here and one eye up here? Am I supposed to look like I have Down syndrome? Which I don't even think is considered a part of autism. But that's the point of this video, is to talk about my experience, even though I may not have talked about it well. In the next video, I wish to cover how it affects me as an adult, and I'll put a little bit more thought to it. And, for you guys who stick to this video and bared with me on this, I appreciate you. I really do. It means a lot to me for you to, hear out how I kind of acted as a kid. And some more of the sensitive topics, like with the police thing, it's something I'm still kind of ashamed of, because I lied to these cops for a personal issue, which just wasn't right, no matter what I say and no matter what excuse I have. It wasn't right for me to do that. However, it's a thing that I've grown up. I've learned a lot about, and as an autistic adult, I do better, but I still have struggles. But that's something I want to talk about in another video, where I want to cover how it affects me as an adult and as a father. So I hope you guys stay tuned for that. And for those of you who are at the end of this video, I appreciate it. I do. It means a lot for me if you guys, gave you feedback in comments below. Maybe tell me about your experiences with autism when you were a kid. I would really like to know, because autistic people are not the same. I've been in a classroom full of them, and though we had quite a bit in common, none of us acted the same. We're all a very different person. And that's why I get confused when people tell me, well, you don't look autistic. Well, there is no look. There is no stereotype to autism. There are traits that we have in common with each other, but none of us are the same. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Stay saucy. I'll see you guys in the next video or in the stream.